Welcome back, everybody, to today's Business Leaders. I am really excited to have on the show George Rivera today. And George we were introduced by a mutual friend, Joe Graham. So I appreciate you, Joe. And I'm really excited to have this conversation. I always love talking to entrepreneurs who have put in the time, learned their lessons, and walked a lot of the entrepreneurial path. And so welcome to the show today, George.
Thank you, Gabe. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So we're gonna start back at the beginning, and I want to know and have everybody kind of hear and understand, when did you first realize that you were an entrepreneur?
Yeah, man, that realization came. I want to say I was like 15 years old when I realized that, and this is now back in the early 90s. So it's been a while. There's this guy, and I know I'm dating myself, but his name's Don Lapre. May he rest in peace. He's not with us anymore, but he used to run these ads where he's standing on a beach and nice Hawaiian shirt. I don't know. Does that ring any bells? Probably at least the
I've
concept.
seen him. Yep.
Okay, yeah. And so he's talking about how much money he made out of his tiny one bedroom apartment. And I just remember being, 15, 16, and like, man, I want to be like him someday. And so yeah, I remember following him for a couple of years until I actually bought his product using my mom's credit card. But yeah, I'd say I was 15 when that itch was first scratched, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember those commercials. I did not. I've heard stuff about him over the years, but I remember seeing those years ago. And so once you bought that, what did that lead you into? Like, what was early entrepreneurship for you?
Yeah, so I bought that. I want to say I was probably 17 by the time I finally had that course in my hands. And I'm like, I'm going to get rich. And I started putting it into action. I did some ads and it failed miserably. Didn't make any money. Now, I'm not going to say that his stuff doesn't work. I'm sure maybe I didn't follow it right or something. But I remember just being like, okay, that didn't work. How else are we going to figure this out? Because once you see it, once you see that other side and you've got that dream, there's no going back.
Yep. And yeah, I'm actually in a marketing mastermind, and his name comes up occasionally, and I don't think you're alone. We'll just leave it at that. I don't think that that system actually worked.
Okay,
and
good to
and
know.
I've other interesting things about his story, but I haven't dug into it a whole lot. So you're 17, you try it and it doesn't work, which regardless of where we start, I think I don't have met a lot of entrepreneurs like, oh yeah, I did the first thing and I was a millionaire. I haven't heard a
Yeah,
lot of those
yeah,
stories.
and I'm still a millionaire. Never had a failure. Yeah,
Exactly.
said nobody ever.
Yeah, pretty much never. But what do you think what was it about you, or how you were raised or brought up, or just kind of where your origin from, that you're like, oh, this didn't work, I'm just going to try the next thing? And like, what were some of the next things? Like, what was part of your entrepreneurial education from that point forward?
Yeah, I think some of the upbringing and what led me to that was that my dad, he was a pretty successful medical doctor, had a very successful medical practice, and I remember growing up, he would say, hey, we're a very blessed family, just FYI, because he was raised poor, so like he's seen that side, and he came to the other side of some pretty decent monetary abilities, and he wanted us to not lose sight of that we're very blessed. There's other people in the world that they don't even know how they're going to eat tonight, and we don't have that problem. So I'm very thankful that he gave that perspective early on. So he's like, if you want to maintain the kind of lifestyle that you currently have, you're going to have to work hard. Nobody's going to hand it to you. And that's where Don Lapre's message was hitting all my hot buttons of having this great lifestyle. So I'm like, oh, this is how I'm going to continue it. I'm actually going to improve it. And so yeah, and I was going to follow in my dad's footsteps and go to medical school and be a doctor. I actually went into the university with a pre-med as my undergrad because again I was going to follow in his footsteps. But by the time I'd reached my junior year in college, I'd made as much money as some doctors make. Through trial and error and reaching different businesses, I'd reached a level of success with selling supplements online, specifically being a provider to a pretty big company in Korea who was like their version of a GNC. They thought I was the manufacturer. I was actually kind of like a middleman. And they're like, oh, we're gonna buy all this product from you. And I'm like, okay. And I'm going to my people that I buy from saying, hey, can you fulfill on this? And so I'm playing middleman and probably getting some 20-25% cut off of some pretty big orders. And yeah, I was able to maintain that for a couple of years. And but yeah, so that's how I went in there. My dad was initially like, son, I love you, and I only know this path, so you should follow my path. the entrepreneurial path to him is unknown. And so I don't want my kid to go unknown. And I get it, came from a place of love, but he wasn't exactly super supportive of it. He didn't stop me from it, but he's just like, hey, you're going down uncharted waters. And so, be careful there. And so there did feel this kind of like sense of disappointing my dad that he wasn't on board with my entrepreneurial endeavors. And so I even remember after I accrued a 6-figure bank balance, this is in college, and this is the late 90s, like 150 in a bank account is like 300 today. So like to put in perspective, yeah. And so I remember, and this is when you had to call into your bank to check your bank balance. There's no iPhone to check your bank balance. And so, the automated thing would say, oh, your bank balance is this much plus direct deposits. And I three-wayed my dad into that, say, Dad, you got to listen to this. Is there something wrong with my bank account? Of course, I knew there wasn't anything wrong. I just wanted him to hear it. I wanted him to hear, son, you've made it. Great validation. I was wrong. You're correct. But after hearing the 6-figure bank balance, he's like, son, you got to pay taxes on that. And I was just like, like he might as well have poured cold water on my fire. And there is a redemption story to that moment that I can talk about later. But at that moment, it was a bit crushing. And it didn't devastate me, but it was like, disappointed. So I kept going down that path stubbornly, against the grain, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge amount of money to earn in college, regardless of the year, and definitely back then, like you said, money's worth a little bit less today than it was back then.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like that's pretty interesting that was like one of your first successful entrepreneurial ventures, and that you're a broker essentially for supplements to a completely different country. So how did you find that? Like how did you find that business opportunity? And what did you learn along the way of, like, obviously that's how you made some of your first money as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I found it through Small Business Opportunity magazine, and the company name was Vitamin Power. I'm sure they're not around these days, but that was back in the day where it wasn't even white label. It was like, you're selling our brand name for a discount. And so anyway, so very different from how it is now. And so I created a website. I had a catalog site, and this was back in the day when it wasn't super common. It was very difficult to create websites, or it wasn't easy. And so I had a pretty complex thing going, and I had a nice little system for it. And yeah, and that big company in Korea found me online, and I guess they must have thought, hey, we're talking to Vitamin Power here instead of a distributor. I guess at the time you didn't have to disclose I'm a distributor for this company like I imagine now you might have to. And so yeah, they thought they were talking to Vitamin Power, and I happily represented.
Nice. So it was all just from a magazine where, like, hey, here's this opportunity, you can buy wholesale, essentially, is where that came from.
That's where it started. And I was getting normal every day, 1Z, 2Z type customers, but I happen to have that big whale find me online, and that was a big portion of the early days success.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think I saw a post the other day on TikTok. It's a great reminder to me that there's so many business models that work, that if we just can learn from them and replicate and expand and add more value, or learn from the model, that there's a lot of opportunity for success there. Whereas I've definitely had plenty of the ventures where I'm like, I'm going to do this brand new thing that I've never seen before, and those rarely, if ever, have worked.
Yeah.
And so the old adage, success leaves clues, is definitely true.
That's it.
And it's always interesting to me to watch. I've been around thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs over the years, and some people like are very attracted to that and find it pretty naturally, and some people are so bent on like blazing a brand new trail, but they don't really have the capital or resources, or the market's not ready. There's just so many factors involved in it, and so that's really cool that you had that opportunity. So from there, you're junior in college, and you have that business. What's the next like 10 years look like for you?
Yeah, so I would say, after graduating college, I stuck with the entrepreneurial journey. I started selling a weight loss supplement called One Day Diet, again, distributor using their name, and sold several $1 million worth of that supplement. That was back in the day when, I don't know if you remember, GoTo.com used to be a search engine, pay-per-click. I think that was like the first one, or there could be one prior. But anyway, they became Overture and then bought out by Yahoo or something. There's quite the line there. But I used to be able to get the term weight loss for like 50 cents and just cash in all day long. And so that was another great run that I had there. I also sold cars on eBay. I had a friend who owned a car dealership, and that was back in the day where you can almost throw anything up and there was good margin. Over the years, margin on most cars shrank except for one car called the Chrysler Sebring. It's quite the eyesore today if you see it on the road, but back in the day, it must have been this pinnacle of American car luxury that we were able to buy them all day long, $3,000-$4,000, and sell them for $8,000-$9,000. And yeah, I mean, it must have sold, I don't know, a dozen of them at least, like that, until the market kind of shrank on that. And that kind of lasted a good 4-ish years, but sold cars to other countries around the world, which is pretty cool. And yeah, then sold personal self-defense items, again, similar to Vitamin Power, another brand. There must be a theme there where I'm just selling other people's stuff. And yeah, that was it. I'd say in 2005 was probably my biggest success. My first year, $1 million year. I was doing Google AdSense, creating a bunch of SEO optimized websites, not by today's terms, but by 2005 terms. And there were all kinds of software that would spit out these sites and make it really, really quick and easy for you. I used to have a team in India that would just crank out websites like crazy. Then just overnight, Google algorithm changed, and there went that business. It's like great money to nothing. There wasn't any gradual decline. It just poof, it's gone. And yeah, did you have some experience those days with all that?
Yeah, the overnight changes, and I had clients in that space, and I had things that were working, and then just stopped.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's and you'll see. I didn't learn my lesson with that as the next few years roll out. But yeah, dabbled in a few different things. I started doing what's called a direct sales, which was just like selling. It's like a 2 level deep sort of high ticket program. Did that for a couple of years, and that was pretty successful. And but then it kind of like died off as far as the effectiveness. And then I created a program. So I bought the resale rights to a program called 12-Month Millionaire by Vincent James. I don't know, does that ring a bell? If you're
Like the name, but I don't know if I ever saw that.
okay, yeah, because it sounds like we've got some overlapping eras there. But
Yeah.
so I bought the resale rights to that, and I sort of like added my own stuff as a by then probably pushing 15 years online marketing. And so I had a lot of my own stuff to add to it. So his was a lot about offline stuff, and mine was like the online stuff. So this is like the total package to make money online and offline. Probably did a couple $1 million in gross there over a couple of years till Google killed the biz ops space. I want to say this was 2011. You remember that, or is that something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
on
started
AdWords.
crashing pretty hard. Yep.
Yep. Yep. And I think I outlived quite a few people because I remember like, oh man, I'm on the chopping block because a lot of my friends have gone down and then they finally got mine. But yeah, and then I pivoted to an agency helping other companies launch their products online. And I accidentally started that business because I was in a mastermind, and one of my peers in the group, she's got this kind of like real estate guru course. And I don't know, she said like, I'm only getting 30 cents EPC. And at that time, there's no video sales letters. There's no like one-click upsells, or I should say it hasn't been adopted by the masses. It's very early in those days. So I started doing that early. So I became the go-to guy to help people get their products, in VSLs and on one-click upsells. And I helped her take her offer from 30 cents to like $4 EPC. Like, it was insane. Like overnight changed the business. And I was doing this essentially for free, like, because as a friend and a peer and a mastermind. And then she's like, "Oh, you got to help out my friend too, who's in a similar space." Did it for free. I didn't know that. Oh, you could, people will pay for this stuff. And then once the referral got a couple degrees away to where like, I don't know this person and I barely know the person that introduced me to you, so I'm going to start charging for this. And yeah, and then I built up a pretty solid agency helping people launch their stuff online or optimize their stuff online. Built that up to about a team of 40 people. And that was from say 2011 to 2016, 17-ish. Those last 2 years of that agency were sort of on the wind down as I had started kind of my next big run in 2015, which, yeah, I'll just get to it. That was a supplement company that I started from nothing and have taken it over $250 million and counting. And so, yeah, I think that pretty much covers like everything, and that's until of about a year ago. And then I can get into like the current stuff. But yeah, that's kind of a big snapshot there.
I love it. I love going back to the origins because I think that I've said for years, like it only takes at least 10 years to become an overnight success. If you're lucky, maybe 20 if you're normal.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then
And
Yeah, no, a special level of determination and maybe like missing a few brain cells or something. Because I don't know who would sign up for a journey like this, like if you knew it from the beginning. But hey, I guess enough people do it to where there's got to be something to it.
Exactly. Yeah, we're a little different as entrepreneurs, that's for sure. And I'm curious now, looking back, it's looking back is always easy, right? We have better perspective. If you look back at all those, different businesses and kind of the path you went through, is there a pattern or a theme of like how you got into the different businesses? And are there kind of like guidelines or rules? Like we're both fathers at this point that you're passing on to your son Leo and saying like, hey, these are the things that I watch for. This is what I've learned over the years. Like what are the like principles of success that you look back and go, these businesses worked because of this, these ones didn't work because of this. Like how do you look backwards and like now that you spent years as an entrepreneur, you have principles and processes and just like mental frameworks. I'm curious what are the big ones that stand out to you that you think are important for people to be aware of.
Yeah, every big success that I've had, and if you look at my 31 years, it's going to look like a roller coaster. Every big success came as a result of something else, sort of like crashing down. And my latest sort of run at success has been my longest sustaining one. And so, what I would say, what's maintained that is just having a great team. At first, I was doing a lot of things, and as we get into sort of what I'm doing current day, I realized that I was scaling chaos instead of scaling my own freedom. And so, like my advice now to like my son, for example, is to set things up in a way that you're scaling something that won't take all your time away from you. I mean, he's still 11, so he might not grasp some of these super deep concepts. But another thing that I explain to him is, hey, let's prove and validate that there's like demand for whatever we're offering before we go like all in on like creating something like a course or program that we're creating together. We're kind of inching our way there to like a fully built program, but we want to validate first that people, they want these specific lessons in the course before we build it out. So yeah, I would say those are a couple of things. So yeah, the main one is your biggest success typically comes after, kind of another a setback or a perceived setback. And then just making sure that you've got a great team and that you're scaling freedom instead of chaos. I would maybe all that jumbled together into one big super advice.
No, that's excellent. Yeah, I've definitely seen that same pattern too. I've gotten myself trapped in businesses over the years, which isn't helpful. And I would agree, like the biggest kind of failures and crashes always are the momentum for the next thing. It's hard to remember that in the middle of the crash, but it's really true. And like the willingness to keep showing up every day and keep learning and keep finding people to help is, always drives me forward. And that's what I love about what you've shared so far.
Thank you. Yeah.
We touched on it a little bit earlier, but we're both dads, and I know that's super important to you, like it is to me. And so you built, a massive supplement business, and you still have that business today.
I'm a minority owner in the company that I founded. So board role member right now that I'm bored of. So yeah, that's kind of the current status there.
Yeah. When we first met, you shared a really powerful story with me about a conversation you had with your dad and how that really changed your trajectory. And I'd really like to hear that because I think beyond the making money and the learning business lessons and all the things that we love to do as entrepreneurs, and maybe we're a little bit crazy for that, there's more to it than that. Than like, I think the longer we walk as entrepreneurs, there's a lot more to it. So I'd love for you to touch on like what happened with your dad and why that kind of like changed your direction.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I love sharing that. So, yeah, so the parallel story to everything we've discussed. So, this is going back to 2015. He's in his 40th year of his medical practice and he's 67. He's not a spring chicken, but he's not ancient history either. And if you look at him at that time physically, he's like a pretty healthy, 67-year-old. Could have passed for like late 50s as far as appearance. And but yeah, he got diagnosed with cancer early in the year and given a few months to live. And a couple of weeks before he passes away, he tells me, "Don't miss Leo's games. I missed too many of yours." And when he made that statement, it hits me like a ton of bricks. I was instantly transported back into my old high school gym where I played in about 40 basketball games and he only went to one of them. I'm in high school, like, by then I'm, 13, 14, 15. And like, I've already had a decade of learning who my dad is. So it wasn't a surprising thing that he couldn't make the games. But the frustrating part was I'd see all the other dads at all the games cheering for their kids when they score a basket as if they won the championship. And I'm doing my thing, and I got nobody cheering me on, maybe except for just fans that are feeling sorry for me or whatever. And I remember looking at another dad just loving on his son, and I'm like, I wish that was my dad. And that would have crushed my dad because he was a good man, but he was the avatar that I talk about a lot is a cash rich, time poor, and that just means successful on paper, the cash rich part, but time poor because all your time goes to your business and the family gets the leftovers. And I was a product of that. And so that was beautiful closure to whatever that was. I'm not a therapist. I don't know how to put language on that. I'm sure there is a name for it. But on the other side, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm becoming version 2 of you, or I am version 2. Like I see this regret from my dad that I'm on pace to experience as well. I'm already missing my son learning how to walk, learning how to talk. He's 9 months old at the time. And the sad thing is I can't even tell you what I missed it for. I wish I could have said, oh, this grand, amazing thing. I know I missed my son walking first time, but it was worth it because of this amazing thing. But yeah, I don't have that thing to point to. And so I remember thinking, got it, message received. We're changing. This is the line in the sand, but it's going to have to start tomorrow because I'm working 16 hours today. I don't know where I'm going to find the time today to do this. And of course, sometimes tomorrow means never. In my case, it meant 3 years. And 3 years, comes and goes. And my dad's long gone now. And this is 2018. And I'm scaling my business to numbers I'd only dreamed about, multiple 8 figures, like printing money, but hating life. And I know hate's a strong word, but I don't know of another word to explain having your family ripped away from you, almost losing them as well as a piece of your soul going along with it. And so I reached to the point where, you know what, I don't care. I'm out. Let's burn this thing down to the ground or sell it. But you can't sell a business of my size overnight. LOIs fail at an 80% rate. Like that ain't going to solve my problems tomorrow. But I could burn it down. Like unplug the servers, live with the breakage. I'm well funded. Let's go. Bad idea though. It was just a massive design flaw that my business had. I designed it myself for me to be the most important person in the business. And so it just needed a redesign. And I had a coach and a mentor that lovingly walked me off the ledge of burning the thing down to the ground. And he just said, stop doing what you don't like doing and keep doing what you're good at. And I'm just like, okay, 23 years in business. And that finally clicks. I guess I'm a late bloomer, better late than never. And, I had a team of 40 people that I was already delegating to, but I was doing it improperly. And there's more to it, probably more than what we have allocated to chat here. But there's some identity issues associated with being the firefighter to your company. It's like, at work, there's a P&L and you can see when you're winning or when you're losing and you can make adjustments. At home, there's no P&L. It's like you have to slow down and like listen and feel. And I don't know about most men, so I'll speak for myself, but I like the instant like feedback communication. And then I can just dive in on that and boom, that's what I'm doing. Versus at home where, it's like a little more mushy, like I gotta like sense it out. And so yeah, but that led me to restructuring my business. And the pinnacle of all that was going from 90-hour work weeks down to like 0, never working more than 30 by intention. And when I wouldn't work, my business would still grow and scale without me. So that was like, okay, we've reached the pinnacle of success from the time perspective. On the money side, my income actually doubled when I worked less. It sounds kind of crazy on the surface, but when you realize, okay, there's a lot that I shouldn't have been doing that somebody else can do better, and I'm only working on my zone of genius stuff, that's how that happens. But the most impressive stuff, more than the time or the money, is like my dad said, don't miss Leo's games. I never missed any of his games. In fact, when he was 8 years old, I taught him how to negotiate real estate. We do Airbnbs as a byproduct of the cash flow and trying to build our little footprint on this planet. And I had him make an offer on one of our properties and we got the house. And I love thinking about that from a legacy perspective. Like one day he's going to tell his kids, hey, grandpa used to take me to make deals. And so love the legacy impact of that. And then I realized, my goodness, the world needs to hear this message now. And so I come out from behind the scenes, after years scaling my own companies and, direct response style. And I'm like, hey, I'm George. I got a message to share with the world. And then the world reflects back, who the heck are you and why should we believe you? And I'm just like, got it. This isn't direct response marketing. This is networking, personal branding, making connections, getting on podcasts, speaking from stage, writing a book. And so I started doing all of those things. And it's led to so many open doors, more open doors than I can count. It's led to my son, current day, he's got a podcast, 150 plus people he's interviewed. He had his first billionaire a couple of weeks ago. It's just like blowing up the network, not trying to find billionaires, but like these people from all walks of life. Like, how the heck did you find me? But anyway, awesome. Glad you're here. So they're in my network now. And so yeah, my goal is to get my message out so that I have a heart for founder dads. I believe God's walking me down this path to help impact the me of 10 years ago. And we've sort of, the phrase burn the boats to the old way of doing business. Like, I have a formula that prints money in the supplement space, but I feel like that's going to take away from the mission of impacting, the founder dads that my heart, is looking to impact, and then the legacy impact beyond that. So I host what I call founder dad dinners at my home in Austin, and it's really impactful. I've got men who've traveled in from all over the country to come attend and sort of come a place to like, yeah, let's talk about how great and successful you are, but we're also going to take the mask off and get down and real. And so anyway, I know I've kind of thrown a lot out at you, wherever you want to pick it up from here.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love what you're doing now. That's why I'm so glad that Joe connected us, and it's so near to my heart. And on the business front, and then we'll come forward more to what you're doing now too. You said something that I've experienced the same thing in a real similar way. So when my son's mom and I split up, he was right around 2 years old, and I was working a ton, like 50, 60 hours a week. And I made the decision. I was like, I don't care about how much money I'm going to make or not make, or how much I'm working. I'm going to take Fridays off just to spend with him, because that's what, like, we had worked out schedule wise. And now today he lives with us full time with my wife and I, which I'm grateful for. But I remember doing that and being like, I don't care what happens. This is more important. And then my income doubled. And I'm curious, like, just to touch on that, because I think for me, there was definitely a lot of fear of like, what's going to happen if I step back or walk away. What were, to dig into that a little more, because I think that sounds like a pretty radical concept to me back before then, just probably like it was before you made that choice to step back. What was that like to make the choice? And then, like, what happened, and why do you think, because I think you shared the same thing, that you ended up making more money by working less? What did that feel like? And then what was like the actual dynamic and change that made the result of what you probably made? I mean, I know I didn't expect that when I did that.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you, I was willing to sacrifice the income too. So be it. I get to spend time with my family, which is awesome. I love hearing that that's how it worked out for you. Yeah, at the beginning, there is a little bit of fear and almost like this little bit of leap of faith that you need to take. And I usually tell people, just start small, get one thing off your plate that you shouldn't be doing. And then you're going to see they're going to do it so much better than you ever could do it. And you're going to get addicted to the process. And once you have a formula that works to getting all these things off your plate, and it's going to get done better than you could ever do it, you're going to want to do that to everything possible. And so I feel like first having the confidence in the system is kind of like the first step. And then the second thing is, you're going to be left with all this, other time that you allocate to work. Like in my case, say 30 hours. So I have to put my work in this 30 hours. So naturally it's going to make you more efficient and make you seek out how you can be more efficient so you get more done in less time. So it almost like forces you to be more productive, or I shouldn't say almost, it does, because it's not like you have all this time, like the old me was like, I'm getting up, I'm working until I pass out. And it's like, there's no urgency, you can be real loose with your calendar, and which impacts the family and not a positive way. Cause then you add stuff to it that you don't really need to. So yeah, I hope in a roundabout way I answered it, but I feel like it makes you more efficient at the end of the day because you're compressing the time you have available.
Yeah, I think that was very similar for me. Like the realization that when I intentionally put a healthy constraint on something, then I can outproduce, because it, like you said before, you're like, oh, I can work 16 hours a day, which I've done plenty of that over the years. And then you think you're getting ahead, but you're not. And it's like there's just not enough discipline and focus. And so when we put a healthy constraint in and we say, this is what I'm willing to invest, it forces that prioritization. It forces you to delegate it. It really does make you go, well, what am I really the best at? And what does the company actually need from me compared to all these things I could do? But I think as entrepreneurs, we're so driven, we're very creative. We have all that fuel and drive. And for me anyway, it's tricked me into thinking, oh yeah, I can do many things well. In reality, like, if I put that healthy guideline and structure in place and then I hand something off, somebody else has more brain space, more talent, more time, and they can way outperform anything I can pretend I think I can do. And I think sometimes, I think for me it was like, well, years ago I could do that well. Yeah, maybe I could, or maybe I couldn't. But like, as the business progresses and our families, grow and things like that, you just don't really have the same energy and resources. And I think for me anyway, I was operating from an old paradigm, thinking that I could actually make an impact when it really wasn't true.
Absolutely. And they're doing it better at a fraction of the cost of what you're worth to the company when you're working in your zone of genius versus doing the stuff that they're doing. So yeah, so many benefits on many different levels there.
Yeah. And so now that you've been able to buy your time back and prioritize on the things that really matter to you, what does that feel like? What's the difference compared to when you were working a ton and missing stuff with your son early on to today? Like, what does that feel like? What's the payoff for you like?
Yeah, it's just good perspective, and I love being at peace with the fact that I know that I'm going to reach my end days just like my dad did, and I'm going to be happy with how I lived my life. When my son was a child, and I know we're all going to get there. Maybe I wish I could have done this or that better, but when I realized that I had to make a change, I did make the change, and I'm conscious and aware that I will never have my son at this age ever again at this moment. So let me embrace it. And that might mean, hey, sometimes I have to do some things when in my I don't know, I don't feel like doing it, for example. Like I'm tired, it's been a long day, but I'll slap myself for a second, maybe not physically, but in my head. And I'm like, there's going to be a day when you're going to be 80 years old and you're going to be wishing, and you'd give up any fortune that you've accumulated to have that second back where you could have said yes to your son. So just get up and do it, and you'll thank me later. And so that's me talking to myself. Yeah.
Yeah. I heard an awesome frame the other day that I'm going to write down and put in front of me. It was called the 10-10-10 rule. And it said, if you're debating a decision, like, how is it going to feel in 10 minutes, 10 months, and 10 years? And I was like, wow, what a great way to look at it. Because if we can just, delay gratification a little bit more, or we can like put that type of perspective, it makes it a lot easier to, zoom forward on our timeline and imagine exactly what you're saying. Yeah, when we're all like, money doesn't matter, all that stuff, wherever we land, we'll land. But if we missed out on time, time with our family and the relationships that matter in our life, then you can't get that back. And I experienced, very similar to you. Like, my dad wasn't around growing up, and like, growing up, I didn't like it. It was hard, it was hurtful, and I was like, I'm never gonna do that. I don't want my son to experience that. And so we definitely have that in common.
So glad you're able to change that trajectory for your family.
Yeah. And so, along with like helping, founder dads and all those things, you mentioned this project you're working on called your Top 25. What's that about?
Yeah. So in an effort to build these connections for my founder dad stuff, and I alluded earlier, like I'm a direct response marketer. $1 in, $2 comes back, and that difference is how I feed my family, pay my bills. The old way. That's not the new way. Like I need to get the word out, make connections, network, meet people, grow deep with them, build relationship capital. And so I've been getting anywhere from 3 to 7 referrals per day. Like literally since we've been on this podcast, I see texts coming up, hey, I want you to, George, meet so and so. And I don't know what the rest says, but it's usually like, oh my God, you got to meet them for a podcast, or they somebody for your dinner or something. And I'm getting asked, how the heck are you doing that? And I realized over time, like, man, I got to figure out a way to like share this method with the world. I don't want to be that guy that makes introductions and then it's like, oh, cut me in for 5% of whatever you do. I'm like, ew. But I do hope that those connections make billions, and I know I'll get taken care of one way, shape, or form somewhere else, some other way. But I do it without any expectation, and I'm always taken care of. And so I'm putting together some frameworks, one of them being yourtop25.com, where people can go and they can start developing their list of relationships and going deep. So it's definitely step one if you really want to build that relationship capital to generate your next client, the next amount of actual capital you might need for deals, the next podcast, whatever it is that would move the needle for your business. That's what the goal is for that. And I'm just living proof that it works with all the connections and referrals I'm getting. And having a podcast helps, or a son that has a podcast helps, and hosting dinners helps. And so just kind of being the center of all this activity. And so I now teach others how they can be the center of all that activity And the whole thing is called One Call Away, how to be one call away from whatever it is you're looking to do, essentially.
I love it. I'm so glad we didn't talk about that when we connected a couple weeks ago, and it's really timely because there's so much noise. Like there's so much noise online. There's so much that gets thrown our way, but what really matters is the relationships we have and like the connections we have, and like that's where all my business and growth and success and all the great relationships I have come from being connected to people. And I'm super excited to check it out. I definitely recommend everybody go to yourtop25.com because in today's world of all the advancements we have in technology is great, but there's so much burnout around that, and there's so much of people realizing like I don't need to see more information, more technology necessarily, but we do need more human connection, and those are the entrepreneurs and businesses that are going to really be successful is when we double down on relationships, because that's never changing. Like as long as there's humans here, we're going to want to interact with, buy from, and have relationship with humans. And so I'm super excited to check that out. It's very timely for me, and definitely recommend everybody else check that out as well.
Nice, nice. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and AI is only accelerating all of this to where the human capital is only becoming more valuable.
Exactly, and it's so prominent now, and it's only going to be more so in the future. So, well, I really appreciate you sharing everything today, George. I feel like just what you shared super timely and important and relevant. Any final words or any advice you'd give everybody watching here today before we wrap up?
No, thank you, Gabe. This has been fun. And yeah, thanks, Joe, for connecting us. Yeah, my main thing is, nobody at the end of their days ever says, I'm so glad I missed your game for that client meeting. By the end of those days, you won't even remember the name of that client, but you will remember if you made an effort or not to go to your kids' games, dances, events, recitals, or what have you. So let's have the awareness now that we can always make more money, but we can never redo a childhood. So I would leave your audience with that.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here, George. We'll have you back in the future.
Thank you, Gabe. Appreciate it.